He was, well, he's actually a runner in my area, and he moved to Southern Cross, and I was
You going? What's your life?
These shiny toys, they just took it for granted.
Cool. Right. We're so official tonight. We don't even have an intro slide. I could probably come over here and do this. It actually happens when you pick the pen up, that's right. This is called bite sized.
It's BY.
Oh, is it? You must be an IT. MS Ignite. We should do an unconference sometime. For those who don't know me, my name's Daryl Wester, also known as Daryl Service, and this is Bite-Sized MS Ignite. Our idea for the session was to try and encourage you all to participate as well. Can I ask how many of you have watched some videos from Ignite or read some blog posts and kind of kept up to date with some stuff? Cool. There's about 30% in the room. The rest of you, you came here to participate in the Ignite experience. Yeah. I'm sorry. If you have noticed too, like they don't have Ignite in New Zealand anymore. They've got what they had Tech Summit last year in Sydney.
Yeah.
They've renamed it now as Ignite on the Road. So if your company wants to send you over,
Go to Sydney.
expenses and travel, that's about it. The conference itself is free, so you don't have to pay a ticket for that. Yeah. So the idea was, and we put a call out, 5 minutes, quick fire talks, present 2 slides maximum. Some of us have already broken that, as I can see. So there's a few points to make on one topic. And we're going to try and rifle through, and we wanted to open it up to you as well, because we figured, surely you've watched some content and you've got some opinions or thoughts about what's come out. Let me put on my dad hat, because I'm a dad, I've got 4 kids. I'm very disappointed in you and the lack of submissions. I want this group to get involved, not just the same old faces. Good to see some new come in tonight, so that's really cool. But look, this is a user group, and it would be really cool to get your thoughts and opinions. Don't be scared. Look, we've got people here tonight that are presenting that if you asked them 6 months ago whether they would do this or not, they go, hell no. And they actually featured on stage. Yeah, I can see you punch there, mate. They actually jumped on stage with people like Donasaka, right? So push yourself, because it's not really necessarily a scary thing. And look, we're all a bunch of geeks here in this room, so we all can relate to that bit of fear.
Yeah.
We are very messy tonight. We have sessions all over the place. We're plugging devices in and out to try and share what we're doing. We do have some swag. Let me say that I used you as an excuse to go out and buy a nice big bag. Okay, because I have to be really creative when I'm going to places. And I didn't have much room going over, but I did intend to pick up little Azure t-shirts and bags and stuff like that. Here's the official bag. Okay, I'm not intending to keep it. That's the grand prize for tonight. I got myself a nice big bag to pack the swag on one side and my clothes on the other. All right.
So logistics. Car here. One needs to use the bathroom. I'll actually hang it on the door in the back. Oh.
Thank you.
Right.
Do you want to use
I'm not going to
it?
stand up. I'm going to leave it to Daryl to be by himself rather than me standing here.
Yeah.
So Daryl's kicking off, and first people are going to get up and talk.
Yep.
If there's something you also thought was really cool, then by all means get up and
Exactly. If you do have any opinions about what's been shared or any questions, we'd love to hear it too. I am going to try and juggle changing scenes and stuff over here on YouTube as well, because this user group, if you haven't attended before, we try and share it with other people who can't make it. And we have been getting quite a bit of viewership as well. I think the last session that we pushed out onto YouTube, about 100 views, and sometimes we get 16 or 20 people viewing live. Not bad. Hello, YouTube. Right, so I'll just change its scene over here. And in true multi-device style, this is not to show that this projector is not 16 by 9. It's actually my iPad. Right, so I put my presentation together that way. One of the things that I'm going to talk about is in the Microsoft 365 stack, and it's called Microsoft Search. Let me play this from here. Slideshow from current. Oh, it works. Microsoft Search. Very genetic. It was called Bing for Business. I'm glad they shared the for business tag, right? Because we've got for business for all sorts of things. And some of us don't go to Bing at all, right? Microsoft Search is a vision that they introduced last year about trying to unify search across all the different products and places that you would like to find information within your own organization, within your own tenant. And this is actually the realization of that. There's already some stuff that's available. So I'm going to try and keep to this 5-minute track, right? Where can you find Microsoft Search? In all those places, right? And you will be able to find them in all those places. The idea is that you'll be able to search from wherever you are working, not playing that game of where to search for what. Like, 'cause we've already got those sorts of questions everywhere, where what to use when or when to use what. Do we need to search for a document? Oh, let's go to Sharepoint. Do we need to search for email? Let's go to Outlook. We need to search for something else. Let's go there. The idea is that you will search from wherever you are, and that content will come to you, including within documents. So imagine being able to go into Word, and you've got an inspiration that you want to look up someone's contact details and bring them in and actually make them part of this document. Then you can search for the details there as well. So that's Microsoft Search. The idea is one capability for everything, and it is bringing together Microsoft Graph technologies, and it is, yes, leveraging Bing, because there is some good stuff underneath there that even if you don't visit Bing, you use Google all the time, there is some good stuff there too. So available today, at the time of the presentation, you can go to the Bing page, you can liven up Microsoft Search in your tenant. You can drop in, best bets or bookmarks, right? So you can already seed things in that you might want people to find within your organization. You will be able to search for conversations across Teams and Yammer, documents, people, contacts, and you can do it in some of these places. Now, how many of you have heard of Microsoft Search and have tried looking at this? Okay, 1 or 2 or 3. And what did you find?
No.
Nothing. You were searching for Microsoft Search and you found nothing. And you know why that was?
No.
Because it's only available in about 5 markets right now. All right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So you go to the page. Basically, if you want to learn a bit more about it, aka a.ms Microsoft Search and Bing, and you can go through the steps and get as far as you can. If you've got an Australian tenant or a US tenant or a couple of other markets, then you'll actually see the option. I'm lucky enough to have that. And I will try and very quickly show you that as well. Just to give you another kind of overview about what it's also about. It's about intelligent search. It's about trying to bring the results to you. So sometimes you don't know what you're searching for. So as soon as you click into that box, it's going to present you with some relevant results based on your activity within your tenant. If you've been looking for certain documents, if you've been working on certain documents, if you've been searching for certain things, working with certain people, then it's going to present those results very quickly. Demo, very quickly. Let's see if we can do this. And look, this is not how it looks on my screen right here. Okay, that green is, yeah, it's a projector thing. So you can go to this page and you'll be able to sign in as an admin. Let's see if we can do that. I can't show off passwordless sign-in at this stage because it's a different tenant and a different presenter. Oh, come on. Sign in now? Yes. Oh, really? Okay. You know, it feels like quite a generic word. Could bring up PowerPoint templates or any kind of templates, business templates. What I do get is sign it. Okay. Let's try this very quickly. We'll go over to invisible search. Oh, that's where I put it. The admin portal for search. And yes, there we go, Bing. Right, so I'd gone into a private session, sorry about that. This is Bing. I landed on Bing. I'll search for John. Let's search for templates. Okay, signing me in to see my results. Still signing me in. I would normally already be signed in. Okay, I'll sign in. Oh, there we go. Right. So I've already seeded the results with Bookmark because I know where our corporate templates live in our SharePoint environment. So I've already put that there. I hit that result, and that's going to, because of me working on a tablet and it's already using the apps there, then it's going to take me through to the site, the document library, and take me through those templates. If you're in a browser, of course, it's going to take you through to that. But that's where our templates live, our master PowerPoint. What else we've got here? We've got results. So if we look at all results, you will see files to do with templates, sites, discussions in Yammer and Teams about templates as well. I've already gone well over my 5 minutes. Let's just stop right there and say any questions about Microsoft Search. Yeah, good question. Soon? Yeah. In the quarter. I'm not sure. Any Microsoft people know who are in the room would know. No, Patrick? Okay. All right. But we will come back to you. We'll post up on there. It's of course the key question that we all ask about Bing and regionalization and Cortana. Yep. Cool. Before I switch over, there was another thing that I was going to take you through. And I'll keep this to 5 minutes. Ooh. The integration between Yammer, SharePoint, and Microsoft Teams. Now, this is a key area of interest for me because I like to see people being able to use whatever tool they want to get conversation going within their team, their inner circle, or their outer team, basically their organisation. And I've really been quite pleased to see that the integration story is now far easier to complete. What we have here down here now, if you've ever tried to play with web parts in SharePoint, earlier we had this modern SharePoint page and a modern Yammer web part, which basically was just a card that said, here you go, here's 5 conversations that are in a group, and you click through and it takes you through to Yammer. What I was hoping was they were going to launch with this. They didn't, but it's on its way. This is my way of taking the palm olive approach. Maybe I'm talking to a younger audience, but there used to be an ad where the phrase, you're soaking in it. You're already soaking in the product that I'm trying to get you to use. And so I see Yammer in this sense as being able to be the conversation engine across our intranets, unifying conversation across the organization without even people realizing they're using Yammer. Right? So you'll have conversation alongside content, and there's also the ability to be the conversation engine behind the live events as well. So they've brought that into team sites.
Hey Daryl.
Yes.
Is it replacing where you've got a new modern page and you've got the comments at the bottom of it? Is it going to replace that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's completely just from the experience as well, right?
Yeah, that's there is 2 ways that you can have a discussion about content in SharePoint. And the SharePoint comments at the bottom of a SharePoint modern page are still there. If you're going to use Yammer, you probably turn those off for that particular page. But they're there also for those who, organizations that have chosen not to use Yammer, can't use it because of compliance issues. They're waiting for regionalization of data and all those sorts of things. So maybe they're not using Yammer, they can still use those comments. And aside comments about comments, there's @mentions now in those comments coming too for the SharePoint comments. Yes, Megan?
Just a quick question also, you know how you might have multiple groups. Can you add multiple threads of conversation for the new Yammer will be part on the same page?
Yeah, at this stage I think it's just adding the group itself rather than embedding a specific conversation thread. I haven't had a chance to dig deeper yet, but I will review that video. Yeah. There's the question of, well, Yammer and Teams, are they really at odds? Is there an overlap there? And yes, you could use Yammer for a certain, inner loop collaboration. You could use Teams for outer loop. So they have recently they're going to be making the ability to have whole organization teams. So if you've got I think it's up to 2,500 people in your organization or less, you can create a team that will always add people automatically to that team. And look, God help me, it's going to be a very busy conversation in the general channel. But where they do fit nicely together is, let's say you've got a focus group or a question or an Ask Me Anything, or maybe a Office 365 101 group where you want to offer support. You can bring that in as a tab into your team, and your help desk or your support team can look at those conversations coming in, decide on how they want to respond to it, then get back to Yammer, and they never have to leave Teams. Right? So that's one of those things. And then finally, too, Yammer has had for some time this little area to save files. You can upload files there, but it was very kind of, poor in terms of document management, and they've been moving towards this dream of all files that are stored in Yammer groups will be stored in a SharePoint document library, so you can have all that full goodness of versioning and metadata, etc. So I know there's a lot more to talking about those integration points and where each of those services leverage each other. The big message there is that they are preaching the message of better together. So giving people choice, allowing people to choose the way that they work. It's our job, the people here in this room, to provide the governance and the rules around it so people can choose the right tools inside the fence rather than going outside the fence. Cool? Yeah. All right. Let's pass on to the next speaker, and I'll unplug and change up some things. Who have we got next?
Rory.
Rory. All right, let's plug Rory in. And this is a digital port there. That one.
Just make sure that you're going to push it once.
Oh, thanks for listening. Please rate my session. The QR code's on the... No, never mind.
Oh, you press a button, Cool.
Oh, we'll do that.
Already Gigabit ADFS on Server 2019 and some of the Azure AD stuff. So at Ignite there were, I think, 20 sessions across identity, across all kinds within us. So ADFS on 2019, somewhat disappointing in my opinion. I was expecting a few more things that aren't there. So they've extended the Azure AD password protection into ADFS, so that's the kind of thing that looks at, has this password been hacked? Is it one of the common ones that meet the criteria? So that's improved. They improved the header customization, so they allow HSTS for HTTPS, and they've also added the ability for iframes. So that's been a big drawback for ADFS, especially if you're using things like Esri, which is ArcGIS. They desperately need iframes, and now you've got that. And you can customize some of the headers, which is something that you haven't been able to do before. They've introduced device flow profile. So device flow profile is something for an IoT device. So if you've got a really modern washing machine, for example, that's internet connected, and the engineer comes and wants to do some stuff, but you want to protect it so that some kid can't push the buttons. But if you've got on a washing machine, you've got some buttons, and you've got a little LED display, right? So you do something, the washing machine goes off to the back end, gets a code. You basically take that code, you go to ADFS, you enter the code, and that lets you authenticate with ADFS. So now, if you're using a mobile device that's got a screen, that's got a keyboard, which a washing machine doesn't have, but you can make sure that you can only get in with proper authentication. So that flow's been available in Azure AD for quite a long time, but now it's in ADFS. They've added support for cores. The login page now, it used to be on the right-hand side. Now it's centered and it's paginated, so they've got that new experience where You type in your username and you get another page where you put the password in. They've added a whole lot of stuff to ADFS help. They've added a whole lot of diagnostic analyzers. So they kind of wizards that you go through and ask you, what are you trying to do? Run this bit of PowerShell, what's the result? And you can kind of work through the wizard and diagnose things, which is pretty useful. They've extended this concept of the password protection. So you've got this flow of where you're coming from, what kind of user are you, and then you go on to the actual claims rules. So through that step, you can plug in modules. And this is just the slides I've seen. I haven't actually seen it working. You can plug in little modules that you can customize that for your company. And they've increased the ability, of Connect Health. So Connect Health is going to monitor ADFS more than it does at the moment and give you a whole lot of stuff about how it's working and how the proxy is working, so on and so forth. So, as I said, it is somewhat disappointing. I was expecting more, but that is what it is. Okay, Azure AD. Wow. Passwordless. That is the buzzword. I think there were 8 sessions there about passwordless. So Aben is going to do a whole session on passwordless. So I'm not going to say any more about it. I'm going to defer to him. So that the latest stat for Azure AD is it's doing 8 billion authentications a day, which is pretty impressive. There's a big, big push in Microsoft to get people off ADFS and move them to Azure AD. So there's this whole move you on premises. So you can do things like you can upload your own certificates now. You can configure SAML name IDs, which you couldn't do before. There's a whole lot of claim transforms, so that's kind of like ADFS claims rules. How far that goes, I don't know. There's a whole, if you go to that Migrate apps, it actually gives you some PowerShell scripts. You run those PowerShell scripts on ADFS. It'll look at all your relying parties, and it'll tell you, okay, you've got 10, these 2, they're too complex, these 8, really easy to move. Here's the steps, here's the documentation, move them up to Azure. You can do regex and stuff, which is very useful. And one of the problems with SAML at the moment is you can't sign the authn request and you can't encrypt the tokens. So now you can at least encrypt the tokens. So if you're doing custom SAML integration, that's something that a lot of people have asked me for. They have changed all the bits and pieces, and they've got a Microsoft Identity Platform portal. So at the moment, you've got ADA, which is the version 1 APIs. You've got MSAL, which is the version 2 APIs. What you use where is a complete mess. So they've basically completely reorganized that, revamped it, revived it. So version 1 is only ADFS now, and version 2 is everything else. And they've got a whole identity portal where if you've ever looked at all Sierra, they've got this thing about what kind of applications you want to write. And you say, well, I want to write an MVC application. And they say, okay, do you want this to be .NET, or do you want it to be .NET Core, whatever? And you pick it, and then do you want a backend? What kind of backend? And that says, okay, here's a GitHub sample. Run the GitHub sample, configure these things, and you can get up and running in about half an hour. So the whole kind of identity thing, and all those many, many GitHub Azure AD samples are kind of in that kind of wizard approach that kind of takes you through and ends up, here's a sample that you can use. They've also changed the way that you do app registrations. So at the moment you do app registrations for V1 inside Azure, and there's this little thing on the side that does the V2. They basically put in them both in one platform. That URL, if you want to go and register there, they will tell you when the platform's ready and you can go and have a play with it. They've increased the service-to-service stuff with managed identities, so that's where Azure is basically going to manage your service principles. At the moment, that's only for VMs, app services and functions, I think. That's extending it into other bits of Azure. And there's this whole concept of decentralized IDs. So this is a thing of kind of not so much blockchain, but these identity hubs that we DBSC, they've changed the whole experience of the way that you configure the policies. So there's more of a wizard approach that you start with what identity providers, and then you flow on to what applications you want the people to use when they register, and which attributes you want to pass to the applications. At the moment, if you want to customize the pages, you can only customize them with HTML and CSS, so they're adding JavaScript to that, which a lot of people have asked before. They've extended the custom policies, so you can extend B2C to use SAML and other OpenID Connect providers that aren't part of the normal Facebook or Google or Twitter or whatever. And you can now configure the password complexity for a client. So you can say simple passwords or medium or really complex passwords, and they can differ across your different policies. And that's basically it. So that really quick spin through. Does anyone have any questions?
What's missing?
Sorry?
You,
I was hoping that ADFS would do a lot more with OpenID Connect. At the moment, the way that you can only configure claims rules if you use web APIs. You can't configure the claims rules if you've got an application, especially if you've got a native client, which is a real pain. So they've just left all that stuff. It hasn't changed at all. And especially SPAs are really restricted because you can't add attributes to SPAs, which means I think, looking at all the stuff that announced this whole migration thing, is I really think they're just basically giving up on it, and they're saying, we're going to keep AFDFS here. Yes, you can use it. Yes, it's going to be there for those guys that use SAML and really complex ones. But most of the time, move it all up to the cloud and use pass-through authentication for probably 80% of the ones that people have got at the moment. Especially when they've got all these PowerShell scripts in it to help you migrate. I think that the statistic they announced was, this is all in preview, and so far they've migrated 24,000 applications from on-premise to the cloud. So definitely something that's going to come in more and more. Okay, I'm going to hand over to David.
Cool.
Hey, so I'm going to be talking about Azure Front Door Service. So this is something that was announced at Microsoft Ignite, and it's currently in preview. So this is the BERB. Front Door Service enables you to define, manage, and monitor the global routing for your web traffic by optimizing for best performance and instant global failover for high availability. Blah, 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 right? So the analogy I'll try and use, and forgive my crude cartoons, basically, if you're making a request for a service that's in the States and you come from New Zealand, the request is obviously going to have to traverse the globe and make its way all the way to America. And you're going to be on public network sending HTTP requests across. The idea with Azure Front Door is basically you configure an Azure Front Door service at any one of the points of presence, and your request gets routed to the Azure Front Door service, and Front Door service will then route your request on to the backend service. So it's kind of like arriving at an airport and then jumping on an airplane and going direct to your backend service. And it runs on Microsoft's private network, so it's kind of like an application delivery network, if you're familiar with that. This guy. So what do you get? So basically, you get application acceleration, right? Because your request is getting routed to Front Door Service basically it'll broadcast that request to the backend service using the Anycast protocol running over Microsoft's private network. You get global HTTP load balancing. This is kind of different to like Traffic Manager, which does DNS-based load balancing. Here you get HTTP-based load balancing, so you're still going to the same DNS, but Azure Front Door Service can detect whether or not something that's deployed to, say, an Asia region and something that's deployed to an America region, the services in the Asia region are down or experiencing performance issues, they'll reroute your traffic to the America region, for example. So you get that nice HTTP level, global level load balancing. You also get things like application layer security. At the front door, you get things like WAF, and you get built-in Ddos protection. So with WAF, you can do things. You can do things like IP whitelisting, right? So you can limit calls from specific IP addresses. You can do geographic-based access. So if you don't want content being available to someone who's in Australia, you can block access. And you can do routing based on HTTP parameters. You can also do things like rate limiting, for example, at this point. You also get integrated static content sharing. So when you make a request for a resource, so you ask for an image, and Azure Front Door goes off and fetches that image, it'll basically, you can set a TTL on that image, and it'll cache it for that duration. So subsequent requests don't have to go back and fetch from the backend resource. One of the other benefits is if you make a request to a backend, basically you get these pre-warmed connections, and it's got built-in session affinity. So if a user is making a request to a specific backend, and they make 5,000 requests, for example, only sort of 500 will go to backend. But if it's the same user, they'll be routed to the same backend that they made the request to. So that way, if you're storing information about the session, so if you've got sort of stateful information about their session, and they don't get routed to some other backend service that doesn't know anything about what they're doing. You also get SSL offloading closer to the edge. Basically, you don't have the overhead of having to create those SSL connections across long distances. And it also has this thing called health probes. So it'll probe your backend services to detect for health status. Anything other than a 200 will come back as an unhealthy backend. And obviously, to get around the pre-warned connection thing, they create a brand new TCP connection to the backend for the health probe. So if it comes back, if it makes a request, it takes too long to come back. Basically, they'll be detected as a unhealthy backend. So you won't get sort of skewed health probes based off of pre-warmed connections. So how is Azure Front Door Service different to existing products? Because this was sort of my first question: was how is this different to Traffic Manager or App Gateway or even Load Balancer? So sort of as I alluded to before, so Traffic Manager is DNS-based global routing, and it doesn't give you things like SSL offloading. App Gateway is designed to be regional-based load balancing, and the Load Balancer is designed for network-based load balancing. So I'm not sure if these slides will be shared afterwards, but if you go and have a look at this image here, basically you have Azure Front Door, which is giving you regional-based load balancing. You've got Traffic Manager, which is giving you DNS-based load balancing to different blob stores. And within the individual regions, you've got the App Gateway doing load balancing between resources within those specific regions. So that's kind of the selling point. Yeah, and that's about it. Hopefully I stuck in 5 minutes.
I should have said earlier, speaker, have you got a skill question that we could ask that someone could walk up and grab a piece of swag? What does AFDS stand for? AFDS?
AFDS.
Swag.
Yeah.
So in your first slide, which had the AFD in it, you showed multiple resources, right? Azure resources. So one of the big drawbacks with that gateway was that it only talked about apps and functions and stuff. Does this mean you can expose it to different things now? Like the AFD, the end resources don't matter?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be an Azure-specific resource. It can be any web application. And it doesn't have to, it can be a microservice. Yeah, it doesn't have to be an Azure service.
It's like they merged Traffic Manager and App Gateway.
Basically, yeah. And apparently this is something that's been within Microsoft for a couple of years now. They use it to run their Bing services. So they're just, opening it up to us now. So it's pretty cool.
So you do provision only once in one resource group, and after it's available all over the data centers, or how you do it? You need to do it yourself manually on the data center.
Yeah. So when you go and create a new instance of it, you have to specify which points of presence you want it to be deployed to. Yep. So you won't deploy it to all 56. You have to choose which regions you want it deployed to.
So it's like kind of contact network thing.
It's like content delivery network, but more application delivery network.
Yeah, because you have additional.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does it still help users avoid the problem hitting the AFD in a shorter route? Because today's problem, like especially in New Zealand, that we can't define which route we take to go out. Once
No.
we go to either the Southern Cross or the other one, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like if we have resources in Sydney and Melbourne, where do we put the AFD?
Yeah, so for us in New Zealand, it probably doesn't make too much sense. But certainly if you had something sitting in the States or sitting in Asia somewhere, then it makes a lot more sense. Yeah. Yeah.
I like the caching.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Cool. I'll head over to Joe.
Alrighty. I'm Joe. I'm a senior consultant with Datacom, primarily on the Office 365 space. A little bit of backstory on the information protection side. One of the key pillars for the modern workplace story is security and compliance. There was different workloads actually supporting the whole aspects of compliance and security. On Office 365 world, we had the DLP, as well as all the features available on Security and Compliance Center. We had the endpoint protection running on the devices, actually Windows Information Protection, and also we had AIP, which was basically protecting the document as it goes along, or it doesn't matter where it resides. All very neat features. And one of the key or the fundamental block that supports building these capabilities is the actual data classification, or what we call the labels, which was how you would associate a document saying this is confidential or this is not confidential, what's supposed to mean. Problem was you define a label in AIP is not the same label as Office 365. So you have a label in Office 365 which controls retentions, how you manage content, etc. It's not the same label that's in Azure AIP, so you're duplicating labels. Challenge with that, difficulty rolling out. Users don't understand which label to use when. All sort of troubles in terms of adoption. Solution, which was announced earlier, but we're waiting for this. It would have been a surprise if it wasn't announced. Microsoft is combining all of them into one service called Microsoft Information Protection, and that comes with the aspect of unified labeling. So the aspect of creating labels is now going to one single place, so you can manage your labels from one single place. The Security Center and Security and Compliance Center Office 365 is splitting up as well as into security.microsoft.com and compliance.microsoft.com. What does the unified labeling provide us? You could create now labels or one label and define retentions and DLP policies associated with it. Also apply things which AIP provided, which was the encryption now, this also, the other thing that was announced as part of this was, so there's quite a lot of things that was announced as part of the whole information protection area. The ability to classify SharePoint and Office 365 groups itself, which was you could have classified or applied labels on sites and libraries early on as well. Now you have the capability to classify the whole site. There was a neat demo of how the labels would work with Teams. So you had somebody sending a message with a credit card number as a chat message in Teams. You could flag that as a violation of your rule. SDA was announced, which means people building their own solutions can actually leverage the SDKs to build AIP or the 365 functionalities into it. Endpoint protection based on Windows information, which was basically if you have documents or files on your Windows 10 devices and you want to apply a specific rule based on the classification itself, would start supporting that. Native support for PDF was announced, which was a big ask. Analytics was another major thing that's coming in now. You have on the security and compliance center, you have analytics dashboard coming up, which would mean that you could get a detailed view of what sort of labels are being applied, where your documents are residing. You could follow those documents, a neat sort of features. UCAS would support the unified labels as well, which means you could if you have MCAS in place, you could flag documents going out of your Office 365 environment with specific rules. ARP customers, AIP labels, people who have already invested in creating AIP labels, the migration options are already available. I've tried it out on my demo tenant. Pretty neat, just click through and it migrates and unifies both the labels together. So everything should continue as it is. That's pretty much.
Go Josh.
Hey everyone, the Ignited announcement I wanted to talk about today is Azure Digital Twins, but perhaps if I bring the slide across. But before I cover that off, I wanted to talk about what a digital twin is exactly. Its definition is a digital twin is the virtual representation of a physical object or system across its life cycle. It uses real-time data and other sources to enable learning, reasoning, and dynamic recalibration for improved decision making. Now it's a bit of a mouthful. To put it simply, it means creating a virtual model that's the exact copy or a twin of a physical thing. Now that physical thing could be a car, a building, a bridge, even something like a jet engine. Sensors on a physical thing collect data that can be mapped to the virtual model. Anyone looking at the digital twin can see exactly what's going on in the physical thing is doing in the real world. So moving on to how Azure Digital Twins comes in things. It's a new PaaS offering that was announced at Ignite. It expands the current Azure IoT platform. As much as it was announced at Ignite, it actually only came into public preview yesterday, so I haven't had too much of a chance to play with it. But from what I can ascertain, boiling it right down, it's a set of APIs and a way to model the physical world that sets up relationships. These relationships are built by setting up something called a spatial intelligence graph that comprises of three main components. The components are people, spaces, and devices. I've got an example which I'll go through on the next slide. But before I do that, I also wanted to mention that in digital twins you can customize devices to the spaces they're in. So historically for IoT devices you'll get a response back from say a presence sensor in a room to say true. Now true doesn't mean a lot, but once you've got your spaces built up, you can actually get a response back that says, well, I'm in a room, the presence sensor's in the room, so the response back is, well, the room's occupied. So it means a lot more to the end user. What's also cool is if you're intending to actually build a SaaS application on the Digital Twins platform, is it's got native support for both multi-tenancy and nested tenancy, where everything's kept separate and secure. So quite cool. Now on to that example I was talking about. At the top here is the example of a spatial intelligence graph that Microsoft's sort of produced. It's predominantly split into three main types. Your spaces there in blue, you've got your devices there in green, and you've got your users there in orange. Now, you aren't limited to how you can configure spaces. They can be whatever depth, breadth you want. You can have any number of them, which is cool because it allows you to create quite a specific hierarchy for what you're wanting to achieve. So in this example, there's a root tenant right at the top there. They're selling to multiple customers. One of those customers happens to be Microsoft, and then they built their model up based on, venue and floor at the top, right down to particular desks and chairs. Now, this level of customization isn't just limited to the spaces. It actually includes the devices as well. So you can customize the devices in such a way that the temperature sensor you've got could be marked as a temperature sensor outside, inside, even in a refrigerator, so you can get quite specific in the model that you're building. But basically, once your graph's set up and you start working with the relationships that are there, you can start forming some conclusions, right? So you could say that if the presence sensor went off in this room, then that means the room's occupied. So if the room's occupied, then the floor's occupied. So if the floor's occupied, maybe we shouldn't turn the aircon off at night until the floor's no longer occupied. So it's bringing all this information that has been collected historically from all these IoT devices and allowing you to actually make a great model and something that makes sense to users. What I've got down the bottom is the Azure IoT model with the digital twins piece hooked in there. Hopefully the slides get sent now because I think it's actually turned out a bit small, but right in the middle there, it's right next to the Azure IoT Hub. So the IoT Hub at the moment is what's responsible for collecting information and communicating with your devices. So digital twins leverages that quite a bit. So when you're spinning up your multi-tenant type implementation, it will deploy individual IoT hubs for each customer. Finally, once you've got all this good stuff set up, your graph set up, and all your relationships in place, that's when you can start leveraging the APIs that are available. So there's a number of vendors out there at the moment, some with, for example, with 3D modeling software, and they've actually started leveraging digital twins to bring live data into their models. So the typical examples, a office building, so they can actually bring up a 3D model of the office building and you can see occupancy as people are moving between the rooms. So it's really quite cool. There's a bunch of quick start and depth tutorials up there now. As I mentioned, it already came out yesterday, but I started playing with a few of them. I suggest you go out there and do the same.
Who's next?
Paul.
Here we go.
Found mine. Op shop. Alrighty. I'm just going to have a real quick chat about Windows Insider for Business. By the way, I'm the guy Daryl said who's terrified of doing this whole presentation thing, and I still am. So, even though that was all lies, that was fake news. So yeah, here we go. Anyone here look after Windows 10 in their org? Probably not looking at the right org group, but how many of you guys insiders? Anyone insidering? Yep. Anyone insidering for business? That's not a good strike rate. Cool. Okay, well, you should be insidering for business, basically. So here's a quick little slide about a couple of things on Insider for Business. Essentially what it gives you is the Insider program in your organization that you can control yourself. You can monitor your organization's feedback, and it's just gets you ahead of the curve if you need to validate your applications, keeping in mind that there are 2 new releases every 6 months of Windows 10, even though Microsoft have changed the support windows for the September releases, which some of us are not overly happy about, but that's okay. So yeah, I mean, get on Windows Insider for Business at work if you can. Run a few Insider builds. Get some of your crazy people on the fast ring. But obviously, the recommendation is most people to jump on slow, especially your app development people. So setting up the rings is quite easy. You can do that with group policy MDM, and now Microsoft have also recently made it available in System Center, Config Manager, so you can set those up with configuration policies. Doesn't mean the build comes from your DPs though, which is something we're hoping to kind of push them towards, but hopefully we'll get there one day, but at least you can manage it in SSCM now. One last quick little thing is Microsoft are also starting a M365 Insider program. Jump on that to register if you can. I highly recommend it because if you're running Windows Insider and Office Insider in your organization, the M365 Insider program could also be for you. So I'd highly recommend that. As they say in the Insider program a lot, this is the money slide. There's a whole bunch of information there on how you can start insidering in your org, insidering everywhere really, with Windows, with Office, lots of information. Anyone here running Windows Analytics? Have a think about running Windows Analytics too. It's transitioning soon to desktop analytics, which is going to be far more feature rich, but to get yourself going initially, jump in and start getting your machines on Windows Analytics. How many are still running Windows 7? Heaps? No? Oh, well done. No? Everyone's on Windows 10?
Yes.
Well done. Wow, that'll make...
It's like 4 years old now, right?
But yeah, so Windows Analytics will help you with your Win 7 to 10, but it'll also help you with your Windows 10 to 10 to 10. Every feature update you take, it'll give you information about your devices, your drivers, applications. So yeah, give it a go. And that's my quick fail, less than 5 minutes.
Hey guys, my name's Igor. I'm a tech engineer at Provoke. One of the most interesting announcements I found from Ignite 2018 is the general availability of ACR tasks. After my presentation, I hope your container deployment and development will be more streamlined and efficient. So who's here has used Azure Container Registry before? A few of you? Okay. So for those of you who don't know, Azure Container Registry, or short for ACR, is an Azure service which allows you to store and manage and now build your container images. ACR tasks can build and test containers in 4 ways, 3 of which are currently GA. The first being the quick task feature. What this does is it can offload your container image builds to Azure, so there's no need for that nasty local Docker engine. I'm especially excited for this one as I've experienced issues at work when a developer is coding away and they attempt to build their Docker image, and instead of getting a nice successful message, they get a nasty red screen saying Docker engine is not responding or stopped working, and then they can't upload. An example of ACR tasks is, you can see in the slide over there, is it can integrate into your CI/CD pipeline quite nicely. Your CI/CD solution can issue a single command, AZ ACR build, and what this command does is it kicks off image builds of one command, which previously you've needed several. The second way to use ACR tasks is to build on source code commit feature. This is us to streamline your deployment experience. So you can create a task to trigger a container image build automatically when the code's committed into your Git repository. The last way to use ACR tasks that we'll talk to is the automation of OS and framework patching. Typically, and in broad terms, your container image is split into a base and application image. Base images typically include the OS and the application frameworks, such as some included there, Node.js and Windows being the OS. These are usually uploaded and hosted on a public Docker hub and maintained by the publisher. When an OS or app framework image is updated with a critical OS security patch, for example, you must also update your base image to include this critical fix. Each application image must then also be rebuilt so it includes the fix in your container image. These upstream fixes are included in your base image. ACR task can detect this by the publisher with one task, one command. With one pre-configured build task, you can automatically rebuild your containers quite nicely. With this automation, it can save you time and effort, which up until now was a manual process. So yeah, I guess these are the 3 ways that are currently GA to build and test your containers in Azure using ACR tasks. And have a go, try it out, and yeah, I hope it just helps you streamline your container deployment and development experience.
I guess we'll do all the questions again. And then remember everything. Awesome. Just click a thing. Right, I'm going to do a couple of topics, so I've got a couple of slides on each topic. So first of all, SharePoint lists. So Microsoft doing a couple of updates in how lists actually work and how they're managed. One of the ones that I think is really cool is this. They were able to handle like 30 million items in the list, but you couldn't actually, if you hadn't put indexes on the list before you added the 30 million, it just sort of lock down and say you can't do anything. So this actually would both allow you to add indexes even if it was over 5,000 items, but it will also predictively work out based on views which indexes to add, and it will actually do that in the background. Previously, if you try to add an index to a list that was too large, you just said, sorry, there's too many items, go away, find some other solution. Now, the other thing they're adding is better filtering and searching. Whenever you go to a list, it has like a search, but it was not very good in terms of finding content. So they're improving that. A lot of people asked also if they change the width of the columns, then it maintained that for everyone. But basically it was on a per user basis. So that now is maintained across them. Plus they stay fixed at the top. So as you scroll the list, the headers will stay fixed, which is more like a spreadsheet with a fixed view at the top, which is quite nice. You'll get back column totals. So there's some things they're adding back in that were in the previous lists that people use. So being able to group based on items and then show totals as well. They're adding the location column back in again. So you can just create little maps and have geolocation that you can pick from Bing. And you'll also be able to add all that functionality into Teams. So if you added a list into the Teams, all of the formatting and everything that they've set here will work. Workflow. So essentially what we're talking about here is flow. So they're going to add some more default flows to lists, so you can go in and set a reminder. So if there's a date column, you can say, remind me, 2 weeks before it actually hits this date. So you can actually go back in and do updates or whatever you need to on the item. You'll be able to, they've already got the request sign off, but you can now actually pick between that and approvals. This one I think I showed previously of doing page approvals, but they're also going to have a hub join approval process as well. So you can, someone wants to join their site to a hub, it'll send to whoever the owner of the hub is and say, is this okay to associate these two things together? And of course you can create your own, but you'll be able to create your own from templates. So at the moment the only templates available are global organization ones. You'll be able to start creating your own. And I've done a few updates to a bunch of the connectors. This one was like really key, being able to support multi-value fields. Like SharePoint's had multi-value fields for ages, but you can never update one without writing your own little HTTP request. And then they've updated also some of the file copy and move to make them much more simpler. And this join action is part of the that other approval process for joining a hub site. because you needed some way of saying, yes, it's approved that they can actually join. And then you can always write your own send HTTP requests. Right, apps. So specifically, not necessarily Power Apps. You can embed a Power App in a page now and add sort of additional functionality, but you'll be able to start building apps by connecting web parts together. We used to be able to do this years and years ago with SharePoint Designer, hooked up to SharePoint on-prem and go create a connection between this list over here and then show some other content from this other list. So you could create like a sort of master detail kind of view. And it hasn't been around in SharePoint Online for ages. And so this is really cool for being able to build really simple solutions. One of the common ones they show is kind of, you've got a list of documents here, rather than clicking on each one and opening in a window, you can sort of select the document and it will show a preview of the document using the file viewer web part. So just do out of the box web parts and then just being able to join those together. But anything that you can have as a web part as like a list or a document library or something that you can select, you can then show the detail of that, whether that's item properties or something else inside the page. They're going to add more cognitivity services. So this is a connection back into Azure Cognitive Services. And those all filter through to search and other capabilities. But basically in lists, they'll start adding more OCR recognition. So if you upload an image, it'll extract the text out of the image and you can add that to a column in the list. It'll recognize objects in the image and then add extra keywords of, we think it's a guy swimming who's 54 years old and whatever else, and he looks happy. So a bit of sentiment analysis. You'll also be able to do translation. You can add moderation, so if somebody uploads an image with swear words in it, it'll pick those out, do a moderation on it and say this isn't permitted within our environment. That kind of stuff. And they already got the transcription stuff in Stream. It's pretty good. We actually record it doesn't quite recognize my accent as well as a US accent. So we were using it today to record Stream's meeting. A Teams meeting, and then it stored that in Stream, and then it will give us the transcript. But it's not exactly what I said. Or the other person who was South African, which wasn't Nick, it was a colleague down in Wellington. But it was better than nothing, it was searchable. So when is this stuff coming? So the Listen Teams is going to release, it's coming out now. You'll be able to format views as well, so not just like rows in a list. You can actually say, just reformat this whole list and I want to show it as like contact cards or something like that, which you used to be able to do with SharePoint Designer. The predictive indexing is coming out and the column whips. And then a whole bunch of the other stuff is coming later. Previously I talked about a new way to create new lists. So you can create a list from a spreadsheet, you can create a list from a previous list, you can create a list from a template that's in another site. So they're going to revamp that whole list creation process. And then other things that are coming from Power BI. And then from a roadmap around some of the other business app stuff, just to give you some idea around a few things I've talked about and when those are coming. So, and there's other things they're also still thinking about, but who knows what will happen with the ones at the far end. This one actually, the Power Apps integration with document libraries, is one of the key ones that need to be able to do to kind of create metadata that's associated. Say you can pick from Dynamics a client name and have it associated with a document. At the moment you'd have to kind of write like Power Apps and it's a bit clunky. So that'll be a key one to be able to properly integrate with a document library and have Power App turn up instead of having to hand code it. Anyway, there you go. I hate passwords. Yeah.
Question? You're asking a question?
No, we do them at the end. We do it at the end. You have to remember everything I just said.
Speakers then give us skill
Yeah.
question.
You could probably rewind the YouTube video and do that. Anyway, thanks, Wayne. Why do I need passwords?
Thanks, Alan. So, show of hands, how many of you guys use passwords? All right. So I'm going to show you how not to hate passwords going forward and how not to use them as well. So, so Microsoft's. Let's look at some of the reasons why you guys might hate passwords, right? So, these days we are asked to have complicated passwords with alphanumeric characters and things like that, and then remembering them. Easiest way to remember them is to actually write it in a notepad and save it on the desktop or under My Documents and things like that. Or you, the middle one is such a common use case. You're trying to hit that website, and then you have to type in the password, which is that alphanumeric that you have saved on the notepad. So you open up your laptop, open up the notepad, and then trying to copy that onto phone. It's just going to be quite a hard work. And then password managers are not simple. In the sense, what it means is that they do not integrate so well with certain applications and things like that. Some of them work quite well. I use a password manager for a lot of the stuff, but they do not work with some of the new modern ways, like the modern SharePoint sites and like if you want to get it into Teams and things like that, you just don't get that exposure from password managers, right? And back in the days when I used to manage IT platforms, one of the main things that used to come up was people use the same passwords for multiple applications. Or you either have it on a post-it note on the screen, and which is used for application 1, 2, and 3, or you share that same post-it note with other users and things like that, so that they can get into and things like that. And I wouldn't say it's easy to phish a password, but some of the end users in your organization or within our clients are quite susceptible to phishing attacks because they might not work in IT, they might not, they might have a different role within the company, and they're most susceptible to an email coming from the CEO saying, hey, can you update your information here? And they click on the link, and there goes their password, and their credential is now scrutinized, right? And so some stats there with regards to, that's quite a high number compared to it's just in 1 year. That means the level of attack, the level of methods of attack has significantly improved as well. With things like quantum computing coming up, it's a few years away. Some of our strongest hashes and are going to be broken, right? But you can use simple social hacking to get users to divulge their details and things like that. And something which we used to do back in our team when I used to work for an organization, when we used to bring in grads in the new year, we used to go a couple of weeks later and tell them, hey, can you give me the password to that because we need to update it. And it used to be a teaching mechanism, right? So, but end users are more susceptible to these sort of attacks. So how do we get into a world without passwords? Now, how many of you guys use Windows Hello or have some sort of newer machines that use? All right. Now, what are some of the ways that you guys log on to those machines? Is it the iris scan, face scan? Yeah. Thumb. Yeah. Cool. How many of you guys use facial recognition on phones these days? Cool. Why do you use that?
You say why?
Why?
It's fast. It's quick.
Yeah. Okay. It's easy, right? Yeah, instead of having to type it in. Especially if you're doing demo and you're showing the screen on the projector and you're typing in the password. Classic example is Kanye West. Last couple of weeks ago, when he was having a chat with Mr. Trump, he showed his. Sorry.
Can you show a photo, Darren?
There are certain phones that have been hacked using photo. It is definitely possible. But the main concept with Windows Hello is that you're using some sort of biometric mechanism to identify. Also, remember guys, the main point here is to disable remote access to your password, right? It's all about having that physical access to get into the system, being very important. So even if you lose that laptop, without that physical biometric scan or something like that, so the person can't get into the machine unless they reboot it. Reset the whole machine and things like that. How many of you guys use Authenticator? How many of you guys use Authenticator to get into your Azure platform today? Your portal and resources and things like that. Good. More and more use of Azure Authenticator is coming. So it's not just for Microsoft portals or solutions and things like that. You can actually use it for any sort of two-factor authentication, like if you want your your public-facing Facebook account
to be, for your organization to be two-factor authentication. You can have MFA enabled on it and actually provide it to, there are certain portals that allow your two-factor authentication to be on multiple devices. Microsoft is one of them that doesn't allow it, which means that you can't have your Office 365 two-factor authentication on one phone as well as on your, let's say, on your Android tablet. There are certain certain portals that allow you to do that, certain don't. LastPass is one of them, who is a password manager where you can enable two-factor authentication, but it lets you put the two-factor authentication on multiple devices as well. So Microsoft Authenticator is a classic. Now, you can actually use different authenticators as well. Google and a few other products are there. FIDO security keys is probably something new for me as well, but what I've been educated by Rory, and I've did a bit of reading as well, is a physical USB device that you plug onto your actual machine, and it provides a couple of ways of authentication, right? So it has a certificate inbuilt into that USB that enables you to access. The key thing to remember out of the last one is that once that is inserted, it actually gives you access everywhere. Unlike an authenticator or Windows Hello, you could probably get reprompted if you open up another browser or some session that's not already tagged and things like that. What I've heard with FIDO is that it enables that continuous single sign-on experience to users. One of the things that I tell customers why you implement some of these things is based on experience, right? User fatigue leads to a lot of security issues when you have to keep on typing the passwords, or let's say even authenticated for that reason. If you keep getting authenticated, you're just going to press the approve button. So you got to find what works with your end users as well, whether it's entering a code or whether it's pressing approve or getting that Microsoft call, waiting for that call to come, pressing the hash key. You have to find the right thing. So it's all about experience, right? So I think FIDO is probably going to be something I would be very keen to see. I think it's on preview now, Rory, and once it becomes more mainstream, the thing that I have a question on FIDO is what happens if it's stolen, or if it's lost. So that's something which, do you have to steal both so apparently the FIDO is tagged to a device, so you can't just plug it into another device and get that same level of access. So you probably have to steal both the device plus the FIDO. So it's sort of like, you have to steal your phone as well as your credentials to get through to, get past something like an authenticator and things like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions, guys?
So some of the FIDO things have got fingerprint reader.
Yes,
and
good
so
point.
Even if you steal it,
You can't.
use
Yeah.
it.
I think biometric based authentication is pretty big, right? So I'm generally a very lazy guy, so I hate typing passwords, so I'm more used to looking at any process where I can, fingerprint reader or facial recognition and things like that. Facial recognition is pretty fast. Some of the devices are really quick. So you got to find a device that works well as well. Again, it's all back to the experience. If your end users find it more fatigue to do that same process, they're going to find workarounds to actually avoid it. Cool. Yes?
Question to you. Mm-hmm. Do you know any passwordless way to authenticate a service account?
Good question. I don't know if Key Vault could be. Can you authenticate against Key Vault?
It's not managed on the NCC, so if you're in Azure, that'll be best what you're using.
Yeah.
It's not quite a service account.
It's not.
The service itself.
So having an SA account somewhere, that impersonates.
Yeah. You can either use certificate or key.
Yeah. So the certificate could be the FIDO key. Yeah.
Certificate for service on the server?
Well, that's for
yeah,
managed
that's
inside
the
using
yeah.
Azure. That's not for
Okay. It's just a question.
Right. We've got a few more presenters, right? So before I ask questions.
Yep. You lost?
Yeah.
No?
Cool.
we got two more.
Over to you, Mr. Dan.
Yeah, well, there'll be time.
There will be.
Oh, maybe
Huh? Oh, yeah. Right, I'm Dan. I'm going to talk about Azure Blueprint Service. This is sort of a service that's announced at Ignite, still in preview. It kind of goes well with Azure Policy. Anyone here using Azure Policy?
And lock
No.
yourself out.
Oh, Azure Policy. So I'll talk a little bit about Azure Policy to give you a bit of introduction. Azure Policy is it's a service built into Azure that allows you to put restrictions or audit policies on what can be created and how things can be created in your subscriptions. So you might say, I don't want to allow my developers to create DV16 machines at $4,500 a minute in the dev test labs. You can set those policies to restrict those things. Now, Azure Blueprints basically enables cloud architects and central IT to define a repeatable set of Azure resources that implements and adheres to an organization's standards, patterns, and requirements. So, again, I think you've probably all seen this hyper slide today several times, a big blurb, and then we go and translate what that actually means. So what it allows you to do is basically say, I have an Azure subscription, I want this Azure subscription to conform to a blueprint. Or I want to create a new subscription that conforms to this blueprint. Now, the reason why I mention policies is because one of the key things in that blueprint are policies. So you might say, I have a big organization or a small organization, we've got 20 odd subscriptions. We want all of these subscriptions to conform in the same way. We want our dev test subscriptions to have policies that prevent our developers from spending all their money. I'm not picking on developers, by the way, I am a developer, but you might want to say, we want this subscription created with a log analytics account built into it. So every time we create an Azure subscription, we've got that logging account there for us. So we can create these blueprints that contain policies, roles, resource groups, and resources. So you might even say, look, for every time we create a new subscription, we're going to build a VM with ADFS in it for some mad, insane reason. I don't know what you're doing, I don't do that, but you could do that. And the way you define these policies, these blueprints, is through the portal, of course. They're saved in a management group. Does anyone here come across management groups? So I hadn't until yesterday. So they're basically a way of allowing you to group subscriptions together. So you might say, look, I've these organizational entities where I've got, my this business unit, they've got a dev test subscription, they've got a prod subscription, this business unit have got their own. And you might say, well, let's create a management group and we'll put all those subscriptions for that business unit and that management group and let them define their blueprints. So you can create blueprints in a management group. The only reason I knew that is found that out is because the first thing you do when you create a blueprint is you've got to create a management group. So created a management group. They sort of provide guardrails for you, so you can safely build environments that, as I said, that conform to your security and your internal policy. One other cool feature of them is they're versioned. So you might say, here's version 1 of our dev test subscription, with all our policies and our roles and our VMs, and I apply that to my subscription. That creates a log analytics account. They go, okay, I actually want a version 2 of my blueprint. So you create a new version 2 and you add some resources to it. Perhaps you might add an App Insights resource into that. You can then say, okay, I'm going to go and apply this to an existing subscription, and it'll go and look at what is in your subscription and add whatever's missing. So you can, version these things and just upgrade your subscriptions as you go along. So, and it's also pretty much a built-in feature into Azure DevOps, previously known as VSDS. So there's a little task in there that you can just create a blueprint or apply blueprint to my Azure subscription. And it records your assignment history. So every time you assign a blueprint to a subscription, it will go and record that you did that, and it'll actually record the outcome. So it'll say, hey, you were on version 1, didn't have that. We've got that log analytics account, but you didn't have that. You apply version 2. We'll say, hey, I saw that you didn't have the App Insights, so I created that for you and give you all the details and the history of what happened there. And this is another little concept in there called lock and don't lock. So basically, when these resources or these shared things you create or the blueprint creates for you, they can be created in a locked mode, which basically says, look, no one else can go and delete this. So your developers can't go and accidentally delete that core, that log analytics part of the blueprint. So you can also do don't lock mode, which is really more of an audit thing. So you might say, look, build stuff up. We'll continue to audit our subscriptions to find out what those, whether they're in state. And I guess the best thing is it's free. So, if you already got subscriptions and you've got those policies, you've got all that stuff, you're already looking at this, you might as well use it. If you've got ARM templates, it's really easy. You already just stamp it out. So, just quickly, how to use Azure Blueprints. Create a management group, and you add some subscriptions. You then create your blueprint. So the blueprint's just in the portal. You can just basically add ARM templates to it, Azure Resource Manager templates. You just go and add a bunch of resources. You add policies, and you can also add roles. So role assignments. So you might say, hey, Aben is just waking up. Aben. No, you might say, hey, look, I want to assign this group of people as administrators of the subscription, no matter what. And you can also, one thing I didn't mention is you can parameterize each of these. So when you apply the blueprint, it'll actually say, hey, what's the name of the AD group you want to apply that role to or create that ownership of. Once you've done that, you publish the blueprint. So until you've published it, it's a draft blueprint. Once it's published, it's then available for your administrators to apply to the subscriptions. And then you just apply it, and after a few seconds it goes through, adds any resources, does the deployment, and then comes up with this nice, hopefully nice succeeded. It's pretty simple, and it's a really good way to just get people started with subscriptions safely. So you can, especially if you're in a big organisation with a lot of subscriptions, being able to stamp these out, and know they're all the same, and know that someone hasn't added, the all users AD group as administrators of the subscription. It's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely have a look. I don't know where it's going GA, but I imagine not far. Cool. We're handing over to Nick. 3 minutes, Nick.
Thanks, Dan. Looks like we're going to finish up bang on time, which is awesome. My update's pretty small. Thought I'd cover some of the certification changes that were announced at Ignite. So who here is certified MCSA or MCSE or done some Azure exams or something like that? I'm one. Who else? Yeah, cool. Great. So, wow, it's green. I wasn't expecting that. It was white on my screen. So all of that's being retired at the end of this year, which means you kind of need to move on. So if you've done any of those 3 exams, 532, 533, 535, those are being retired at the end of the year. So if you're currently working towards them, complete them by the end of the year, otherwise you won't be able to. I've personally done 534, which has already been retired. That was like a year or so ago. So everyone knows things move quite quickly in the Azure landscape. The stuff you learned a year or 2 ago doesn't really apply today. Right? So you have to keep on top of things all the time. The green's really annoying.
Yeah, sorry, that is my fault. I see all the slides. I must have Nick was last one. So.
Yeah, that's all right. So if you are a MCSA, Linux and Azure, whatever, MCSE cloud platform, those are retired in the year as well, so they're kind of not valid from next year because you're essentially skilled in old stuff. So where things going? So there's some new role-based certification paths becoming available, which makes a lot more sense these days, really. So Microsoft's set up those 6 different role-based paths you can select. So you've got Azure Administrator, Azure Developer, Azure Solutions Architect, Azure DevOps Engineer, Microsoft 365 Desktop, Modern Desktop Administrator, and Enterprise Administrator. So whatever your job is, or whatever you want your job to be, you can choose one of those, which is the best fit, and then go down that certification path in order to actually achieve the certification so that you can get that job you want, or that you can get a bit more money come salary reviews on in your current job, to show that you're still actually up to play with what the current learnings are around that sort of stuff. Yeah, obviously, the way Azure's developed, in the past it was easy enough to kind of learn everything because there was only so much stuff to learn. Whereas now, it's like massive, right? There's just too much for one person to know, which is why it's a great idea that they've actually sort of separated it out. So you can kind of focus on areas that you need to know about, pass an exam to do that, get certified in it, and if that's all you care about, then leave it at that. If you want to move on to something else, then you can go down that path as well. All right. That's pretty cool. And there's some cool new logos as well. You can collect these badges. Azure Solutions Architect badge. With your 3 stars for an expert, or there's like 2 stars for a, I forget what it's called, but yeah, it's kind of different. Yeah, associate, that's right. Yeah, like little things like that. If you're wanting to know how to actually, what paths you need to go down to get to each of those, there's a new website for you, Microsoft Learn. This is announced at Ignite as well. It's essentially Microsoft's new learning portal. So if you want to understand all their other sites like Microsoft Virtual Academy and like IT Pro Pathways and all these different things are being retired and all that content is moving into Learn. So Learn will be a one-stop shop for any learning that you want to do about Microsoft stuff. And it looks pretty cool. It covers everything really. So you've got like Azure, what's that? Perhaps dynamic stuff, Power BI, so a lot of different Microsoft products, all in one place. And you can go and start a learning path. So you select your role, who you are, what you want to be, and then it'll basically map out all your learning, all the stuff you need to know about, the exams that you need to sit after that, and the certifications that you get. So really easy, and along the way you can collect badges and throw those off to your mates. And kind of feel good about your learning path. So if you haven't yet, head along to Microsoft.com/learn. It'll take you to Microsoft Learn, and you can start working towards the new certifications because your current ones will expire at the end of the year. So, I need to go into that myself, as well as my team. Yeah, so, we get there. Cool, and that's about it. So 2 minutes past the hour, bang on time. Any questions? No. Any questions for anyone else tonight, by the way? I know we said we keep questions to the end for some people. No, nothing. No, all good. Who wants to present next time? Hands up. Hands up. Yes. Yeah, so we put that as a big call for content this month, eh? So yeah, it'd be good to get some more responses next time. I had a good night, a lot of coverage. It's always good to have you guys up here rather than the usual suspects that we hear from all the time. Come and tell us about what you're doing with Azure or Office 365, your journeys, your learnings, stuff that you'd like to have, which you don't have yet, good stuff, bad stuff. We're a community, right? So let's all talk about it and get together. We got one more session this year. November will be the last one. So the 3rd week of November, don't know what the date is, but we'll have the meetup up in a couple of weeks. It'll be our last one, and then we'll resume in February after that. And hopefully all have a good festive season.
All right, all speakers standing up, thinking of a question to hand out the swag. We'll take it home.
Or how about like the non-usual crowd who actually presented can have a selection?
Well, that's actually, that's fair.
Yeah.
People who don't usually...
people who don't usually, so not us, who are always up here, but the other people. Joe, yeah. Igor, Josh, you guys come up, you can choose something. This is an awesome effort, guys. First time we've seen you up here, so I know it's even though it's only 5 minutes long, it's quite nerve-wracking if it's your first or second time doing this sort of thing.
Get a round of applause.
Yeah. Sweet.
Oh, okay.
You need to try it on.
Switch that one on. What's this? What is that?
That supposedly goes around your drink, but if you have a lot of them, you could. Actually, the Microsoft Teams bag was filled with them. So user group facilitators like me could sign a form and get a bag full of these.
SharePoint shoelaces.
SharePoint.
No one's going for that one.
Yeah.
How many capital letters in SharePoint?
Give it to Marcel, bro.
Yes. Oh, a lot of work. We've got I am on the Azure Fast Track to Azure. This Docker T-shirt was one that I picked up at Mark. What was it?
What's the Docker question?
That's pretty sweet.
I know. Yeah, that.
What was something to do with containers?
He would do the container session.
Yeah, it's
What's a container question to ask the
Yeah,
audience?
who can answer a container-based question?
on the thing of a question.
Yeah. Think of a question.
What's used to orchestrate containers?
What is used to orchestrate containers? For the Docker.
What's your favourite?
What's your favorite? What's your favorite orchestrator?
Kubernetes, Docker.
Well, there you go.
All right.
Cost to get it.
I have a. Oh yeah, I'll do this one because it's Microsoft Search. Is it available in New Zealand?
Yes.
I want to see some hand raised.
No.
You've already got a prize.
Go do it soon.
Yes.
No.
There we go. All right. Yeah. T-shirt gun. Who wants the Chuck Norris? Be the Chuck Norris of AD. Kick ass AD. All right.
AD question.
AD question.
Oh, Rory.
Laurie, give us an AD question. Yeah.
From your
What do
presentation.
you use to connect AD up to Azure?
Ready, connect?
Hand please.
You don't want to really
He's come with me, so it's probably my boss one.
Did you say
Did you put your hand up and say Azure AD Connect? Yeah.
anyone?
There we go.
He's like, oh, you threw the orange t-shirt at me. It's really not my colour. Ooh, what's this one? Ah,
Azure.
look, well, it does say Azure, but I didn't see this on the back. This one.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
So it says extending Azure to your data center.
Can we get two of
What
them to New
what
Zealand,
what service would be best for that?
What service would be best to extend
Azure to
Azure
your
to
data
your
center.
data center?
please? Storage.
No, so if you wanted to connect Azure to your data center, what would you put in place?
What?
Express
Hands.
Express route.
You've got a price. Hands.
Somebody repeat the same answer.
Anyone want a shirt?
T-shirts.
No one wants a shirt?
Nothing from
Nah.
Actually, is there a front door service in New Zealand?
There's a pop in New Zealand,
Yeah,
but
I
I don't know whether it's one of the 64
It's going to
that's
become a
mentioned.
lolly scramble soon. It's
No.
going to throw stuff.
There's a pop in Auckland.
All right.
open up.
Does anyone
TDN has a
want
pop-up.
wireless chargers with free USB cables?
Who loves SQL Server?
SQL Server and a Microsoft
Adobe.
and Adobe one.
As long as you've got a phone.
Any Photoshop people?
Let's charge.
All right. Okay, that's great. We have swag left over. I will have a couple more T-shirts to give to my kids. Maybe one or two to wear for pajamas or something. Is this a V-neck? Oh, hey, you know what?
Leave it
This
for
is
next
actually
session.
a woman's foot. This is a woman's foot.
Leave for next session. Some questions.
Pick up a SQL Server charger.
Oh, someone's got to go for a SQL Server charter.
Okay.
Well, if I'll go for an Adobe. I'll take
Fair.
I'll leave that right there.
All right, that's us.
Good work, boys.
Oh,
She's with the wife. No, she's rolling it up to the
She's an Adobe girl.
all right. So we Oh, from where?
So it's actually So yeah,
Okay.
we got someone send someone. Someone must. Yeah,
You also probably need to do a couple of team positions and user group so that we can kind of give some reason for people to send us some team stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could
Someone
source
got a
that.
Galaxy S9 or
Yeah.
so.
Do you guys have some stories you could tell about teams? Maybe like,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be cool. Like if you could come along and like, give like a 20-minute session or whatever about how you've used it or what you've been working on in there, that'd be cool.
I don't know what I did the next slide to make them
No,
so
you'll be part of
massive.
How you did it?
I know. I can't think I copied.
Do you already have?
He was the last. It looks like copy paste.
Looks like a
Like,
shadow.
yeah, maybe next
You know,
year.
the copy.
Maybe next year.
No, I thought by the end everyone would be a bit
talk about
tired. I wanted to wake them up with the
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Thanks.
Mine's
Make it
orange.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did I stop streaming?
Good job, everyone.
Well, I was going to say, where's the little, like, just funny Microsoft thing? And then,
Oh, is it?
yeah, that's true. I can do that.
Is it your play?
It's all right, man. Thanks for
You been
jumping
in
in
the
and doing a session.
You been in
Doing
the
a
gate?
micro session.
No, I didn't
No, I didn't go this
Actually,
Yeah.
when I started to throw cans partway through last week,
That's cool.
where are all the submissions? I didn't
Someone's got
realise
no. I
that-
haven't. Yeah, did you guys go? Any of you guys go?
Oh, like our guy from Air New Zealand, been there. He just like he talked about teams a lot. He's like teams evangelist and like
Oh, okay. He's well
teams
into.
all over the world. I mean, there's lots of teams features. Like,
Yeah, it's a pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty cool product.
yeah.
I'm trying to get us to get that.
Yep.
We're still waiting for Microsoft to create a connector so we can use our Skype hybrid with the teams. We still can't have dial-pad, and it's just the stop us.
As long as it's you know stuff's just around the corner, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah, it's like still a long way to go.
Yeah. Oh, it was good. Good. It was a good turnout tonight. And yeah, it was really good to have so many people talking. So I reckon we could get more next time.
Yeah, so it's different people talking. It's like it's even more interesting. You can't sleep on all the same topic.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Have you? I'll talk to Nick if we've got anything set up next. Yeah. I'll
That's a wrap.
No one needs to drive in the office, you know? You just need to do something. I always do that.